When the zombie apocalypse hit, the old Jade bracelet I inherited suddenly flared with a dazzling light, and I unlocked a pocket dimension. In my past life, I brought my boyfriend and his entire family along to hide out from the zombies in the dimension with my grandma. I never imagined he would steal my bracelet while I was asleep, kick me and my grandma out, and laugh like a hyena as he watched us get eaten alive by a horde of zombies. This time, not only am I going to make sure my grandma and I live it up, but I'm also going to make his family pay in blood. Grandma. I woke up from the nightmare, drenched in sweat, and instinctively reached for the jade bracelet on my wrist. A white light suddenly enveloped me. I found myself in a strange, empty space, the memory of being torn apart by zombies still vivid in my mind. That wasn't a dream. I had been brought back to life after being eaten by zombies. The bracelet on my wrist was a family heirloom, passed down for generations. After my parents died in a car crash 6 months ago, my grandma put it on my wrist herself, telling me it would keep me safe. In my last life, the bracelet had flared with light right after I read a certain news report. It pulled me into a space that was over 10,000 square feet, complete with its own sun and moon, blue skies, white clouds, grassy fields, and even a water well. I checked the time. It was the middle of the night. That news report wouldn't be out until around 10 tomorrow morning. This meant I'd been reborn and had activated the bracelet space ahead of schedule. I scrambled out of bed, grabbed my phone, and searched for news about zombies. All I found were novels and fan theories. Not a single government agency had mentioned anything about a terrifying zombie virus. But 5 days after I unlocked the space, the zombie virus erupted. I watched with my own eyes as the couple across the hall lunged at their daughter, the girl they had always treated like the apple of their eye. The first thing I did was call my grandma and found out she was hiding in the basement of our old family house. Then, I immediately called my boyfriend, Kevin, told him everything about the space, and went to meet him so we could go to my grandma's together. When I got to his place, his parents and his sister were all there. At the time, I was just relieved we could all leave together. His mom even held my hand with tears in her eyes, saying how lucky they were to have me and that they wouldn't know what to do in this apocalypse without me. But later, when my grandma was on her knees begging them to spare us, that same woman pointed at her and called her a useless old hag who should have died long ago. Then she egged Kevin on as he threw me and my grandma out of the space to be devoured by zombies. The ones who really deserved to die were that family of heartless bastards. Even though it was the middle of the night, time was short. I pulled out my phone, opened up my shopping apps, and went on a spree, buying up staples like rice, flour, cooking oil, and all kinds of daily necessities. I even found a prepper's checklist online and bought the maximum quantity of everything on it. Last time, I didn't have enough time to stockpile supplies, and with so many people, we had to ration everything, even with the space. Things were different now. It was just me and Grandma, and we were going to live in luxury. Besides, I had noticed last time that the rules inside the space seemed different from the real world. Time flowed normally, but food could sit there for days without spoiling. Right, I needed a house. The space was huge, over 10,000 square feet, but it was just empty land. It even had its own weather, with thunder and rain. We couldn't live comfortably without a proper house. I checked my bank account. The insurance payout from my parents' death 6 months ago, over $400,000, was still there. Plus, I had over 20,000 ID saved up. Buying a house wasn't the problem was how to get it into the space. In the dead of night, I drove out to a half-finished, abandoned housing development in the suburbs. Most of the houses were just empty shells, but the model home was fully furnished. I was mainly there to run an experiment, to see if I could move a whole house directly into the space. It actually worked. I just stared at the house, and with a single thought, the 3,000 square foot, fully furnished mansion appeared in my space. It even brought the yard and the decorative rock garden and fish pond with it. I went inside to check. The power was on, the water was running, and most importantly, the toilets flushed normally. I understood instantly. The rule of the space was that whatever state things were in when they entered, they stayed that way. For example, if food went in fresh and hot, it would stay fresh and hot indefinitely. It wouldn't spoil. It was all my fault for rushing to meet Grandma right after picking up Kevin's family last time. We had barely settled in before he stole the bracelet, so I never found out the space could be used like this. This was great. Now I could even save the money for a house. All I had to do was wait for the apocalypse to begin, pull the mansion into my space, and get out of Dodge. I could use all my money to stockpile supplies. While it was still dark, I moved the mansion back to its original spot. The apocalypse was still a few days away. If someone discovered a fully furnished mansion had vanished overnight, and with surveillance cameras everywhere, there was no guarantee I wouldn't be caught and dissected. After my last life, I was going to be much more careful this time. I wouldn't let anyone know the bracelet's secret. By the time I got back to the city, the sky was starting to lighten, and the surrounding shops were opening for business. As my eyes swept over a courier station with a for lease sign, I slammed on the brakes. That was it. I'd buy the mail depot. That way, all my packages would be delivered directly there, saving me the trouble of picking them up and preventing anyone from getting suspicious. At 9 in the morning, after paying the $20,000 transfer fee, the mail depot was mine. I opened my shopping apps. Luckily, none of the orders I'd placed in the middle of the night had shipped yet. I quickly changed the delivery address for all of them to the depot. Then, over breakfast, I continued my shopping spree. I stocked up on enough rice, flour, oil, and sugar to last a lifetime. It wouldn't spoil in the space anyway. I also bought all sorts of seasonings, cookies, milk, coffee, and everything else I liked, all by the case. The platform was running a huge sale, which saved me a ton of money. I holed up in my new mail depot and spent the entire day from morning till afternoon, buying everything on the apocalypse checklist. Food, supplies, even a full range of medicines. Finally satisfied, I put down my phone and started planning my next purchases. Fresh fruits and meats would have to be bought at the market. I checked online. The wholesale fruit market and the slaughterhouse were both within a 3-mile radius, and they both delivered for large orders. Perfect. I'd have everything sent directly to the mail depot. The place was over 1,000 square feet, so there was plenty of room. Around 6 in the evening, I started making calls while eating dinner. I ordered 2 whole cows, 10 sheep, and 10 pigs for the next morning, all to be butchered, portioned, and delivered to the depot. As for fruit, I ordered it by the case, 20 cases of every single kind of fruit they had, with the option to order more later if needed. I saw that news report again. My phone pushed a notification about a serious safety incident involving blood products from a certain country. It confirmed that over 1,000 people who had used these products were now experiencing confusion and aggressive behavior. The government had announced a halt to all imports of blood products from that country. In my last life, I saw this news around 10 in the morning, but just glanced at it and moved on. This time, I clicked in to read the comments. People were saying that country was engaging in biological warfare. I noticed one comment that said confusion and aggressive behavior sounded just like zombies. The comment pointed out that a zombie virus could be transmitted through bodily fluids. If a zombie outbreak really happened, it wouldn't just be the people who used the blood products who would get infected. Anyone who had exchanged bodily fluids with them would also be infected. The severity of such an explosive, untraceable pandemic was impossible to predict or prevent. Ring, ring, ring. My phone suddenly rang. It was Kevin. He hadn't called me on this day in my past life. Confused, I answered. His urgent voice came through the phone. Zoe, the end of the world is coming. We need to stock up on supplies fast. What are you talking about? Stop joking around. He was reborn too. My first instinct was to hang up and block him, but I forced myself to stay calm. I couldn't let him know that I was also reborn. With how twisted his family was, there was no telling what they'd do. I'm not joking. This morning, did you see a news report about a serious safety issue with blood products? And then did your family's heirloom bracelet suddenly glow with a dazzling white light and pull you into a separate dimension over 10,000 square feet? Wow, how did you know? I feigned shock, hating my past self for telling this monster everything without reservation. I know because I was reborn. Zoe, you need to come meet me right away. We have to stock up. Oh, right, isn't your grandma still in the countryside? We'll go get her right after we finish stocking up. Don't worry, even if it's the end of the world, I'll protect you and your grandma. Kevin's gentle voice sounded like it was laced with poison, making my skin crawl. Zoe. I was silent for too long, and Kevin grew impatient. Forget it. If you don't want to come here, I'll come to you. I'm not home. My grandma called me this morning saying she wasn't feeling well, so I'm already on my way back to my hometown. How about I go see her first and then come find you? I can bring my grandma with me then. My hometown was a 3 or 4 day drive from Jincheng. A round trip would take forever, it would be too late by then. As expected, Kevin got anxious. We can't wait that long. How about this? I'll book a flight right now and bring my family. You wait for me at the airport, and we'll go find your grandma together. Okay, that works. I had to buy as much time as I could. As soon as I hung up, I called my grandma. Change of plans. Pack your things right now and come meet me. Grandma asked if something was wrong. I said yes, something huge. If you're late, I'm going to die. Grandma replied, then what the hell am I still packing for? She moved fast. Before Kevin even got to the airport, she was already on a motorcycle to the nearest town, where she'd catch a bus to the city, and finally a bullet train to the airport. It was much faster than driving. I immediately booked a flight for her, and told her to find an airport employee who could help her check in and get to her gate. Meanwhile, I went into overdrive with my shopping. I had no intention of going back to my rental apartment. My plan was to wait for Grandma, hunker down in the mail depot to receive all my packages, and once all the supplies were in, go grab the mansion. Then I'd find a safe place for me and Grandma to hide out in the space until the apocalypse was over. There were 4 days left until the zombie virus outbreak. I was, of course, sleeping at the mail depot. I woke up bright and early to start signing for deliveries of beef, lamb, pork, and fruit. It was a good thing I'd gotten this place beforehand. If I were still in my tiny rental, just receiving all these goods would have been a massive problem. The 1,000-square-foot space was quickly piled high with goods. As soon as the delivery guy left, I pulled the shutter door down. With a single thought, everything was instantly transferred into my space. At this point, Grandma had just boarded her flight, which would take over 3 hours. She had spent the previous night at a hotel near the airport. In the morning, the hotel shuttle took her to the airport, where an employee helped her through security and onto the plane. An hour after my grandma's plane took off, Kevin called me. Zoe, I'm here. Where are you? Take a guess. He actually expected me to pick him up from the airport. Dream on. What do you mean, take a guess? Zoe, don't joke around at a time like this. We need to stock up on supplies, and you still have to go get your grandma, right? We have to hurry. You don't want us to be starving when the zombie virus hits, do you? Kevin was still trying to appeal to my emotions. I almost burst out laughing, but I held it in and asked with a trembling voice, tell me, how did my grandma and I die in our last life? You've been reborn too? Kevin blurted out, his voice clearly panicked. A smirk played on my lips. No, my grandma was reborn. She said you're a monster, and your whole family is a bunch of animals who threw us out to be eaten by zombies. No, don't listen to her nonsense. Kevin denied it instantly, then paused before launching into a fabrication. Zoe, I didn't want to tell you this, but since your grandma said that, I have to. You can't be with her. The person who got us all killed last time was your grandma. I thought, Kevin continued, it's true, believe me. After your grandma found out you had the space, she forced you to take in a lot of people. I told her that people's hearts are unpredictable and the last thing you should be in an apocalypse is a bleeding heart, but she wouldn't listen. She kept forcing you to do good deeds, even letting all those homeless people into the space. You have no idea how terrible they were. Not only were they ungrateful, but they teamed up to steal your bracelet. I got on my knees and begged them to spare us, but Kevin actually started sobbing at the end. I was impressed. With acting skills like that, why wasn't he in Hollywood winning an Oscar? And he had the nerve to slander my grandma. My grandma was a kind woman, but she was definitely not clueless. In our last life, she had even warned me to be careful of his family. I was the fool who let my guard down around him, letting him steal the bracelet while I slept. Zoe, please believe me. You died before I did last time. And I was so heartbroken I didn't even want to live anymore. I threw everything away and fought them with all I had. Maybe fate took pity on my devotion and let me be reborn. Zoe, I'm begging you, believe me. Give me a chance to make up for last time. This time, I will protect you no matter what. Kevin was still rambling on, but I saw another delivery guy outside the door. I hung up, blocked his number, and went to get the delivery. The world was ending. Who had time to listen to his nauseatingly bad performance? I was in a major city, so the things I ordered yesterday were already arriving today. I checked the time. It was about time to go pick up Grandma. I taped a note to the front door of the mail depot, telling the delivery guys I had to step out and to just leave the packages there for me to handle when I got back. Then, I drove straight to the airport. Once I had Grandma, I wouldn't have a single worry left. On the way there, Kevin's mom called me. I blocked her number. Kevin's dad called me. I blocked his number too. Then Kevin sent me a text from his sister's phone. Zoe, I know you'd rather believe your grandma, but think about the 3 years we've been together. How good I was to you, how much I loved you. How could I possibly be as bad as your grandma says? I ignored it. He was probably afraid I'd blocked this number too, so he didn't dare call. Another text came through. Zoe, think about it. If I were really that bad, why would I have been reborn? I should be living it up in the apocalypse, not dying and coming back to find you. I was actually curious about that. Based on how quickly he was reborn, it seemed like he died not long after I did. Logically, after killing me and my grandma, that bastard should have been hiding in the space, living a life of luxury. Why did he die so soon? But asking him directly would only get me more lies, so I didn't bother. I continued to ignore him. When I didn't reply, he clearly got desperate and called me. I blocked him again. I had arrived at the airport. I saw my grandma standing by the entrance with her bag. I ran over and hugged her, my voice catching in my throat. Grandma. My dear, what's wrong? Seeing my red eyes, Grandma got anxious. Who bullied you? Grandma will go settle the score for you. I just missed you. I held on to her tightly. Even when we were walking, I kept my arm linked with hers. Grandma, let's go. I have something really important to tell you when we get back. We drove back to the mail depot. In just over 2 hours, a huge pile of packages had accumulated. When no one was around, I told Grandma everything about being reborn from start to finish. I even pulled her into the space for a quick tour, which left her utterly speechless. It took her a while to recover. She hugged me, her eyes turning red. My poor baby. Those goddamn animals will go to hell sooner or later. They absolutely will. Hell is waiting for them. With 3 days left until the zombie outbreak, I received another 2 cows, 10 sheep, and a whole truckload of various fruits. Most of the supplies I ordered online had also arrived. My space was a chaotic mess, but that was okay. I could organize it later. The important thing was that with all these supplies, Grandma and I had enough to comfortably wait out the apocalypse in the space. Kevin was still relentlessly trying to reach me. I had blocked his entire family's phone numbers, but he kept calling from new ones. My phone was flooded with over 99 missed calls and texts. I ignored them all. As long as I stayed hidden, there was no way Kevin could find me anytime soon. I never expected him to resort to such a desperate move. He started a live stream, accusing me of being a scammer who took his $20,000 and then ghosted him. He even cried on camera, Zoe, I love you. If you're willing to come back, I'll give you another 50,000, even 100,000. I'd give you my life if you wanted it. When it popped up on my local feed, I was stunned. No wonder the delivery guy who just dropped something off was giving me a weird look. This was bad. Someone might have already told Kevin my address. I had to get out of here fast. The problem was I still had deliveries on the way. But it was fine. I had already received about 80% of my orders. For just the 2 of us, this was more than enough to last for years. So after clearing out the mail depot, I slapped a closed for personal reasons sign on the door and drove with Grandma straight to the abandoned development in the suburbs. I really liked that mansion from before. I'd just take it, and then find a new, deserted place to hide out with Grandma. I already had a location in mind. We'd go back to my old hometown. Kevin and his family would never dream that we'd double back. By the time they reached Jincheng, we'd already be on our way home. I drove while Grandma chattered beside me. worrying that the old house back home might not be secure enough to keep zombies out, especially since we hadn't prepared anything there. I'd shown her a zombie movie yesterday after she arrived, so she had a pretty good idea of what we were up against. Her brow was furrowed with worry. I patted her hand. It's okay. We can hide in the space. The zombies can't get us there. About an hour later, the mansion was safely tucked away in my space and Grandma was inside it. I was the only one driving toward our hometown. My phone screen kept lighting up. A non-stop flood of calls, texts, and social media DMs poured in. Even classmates I hadn't spoken to in ages were messaging me, asking what was going on and why Kevin was trashing me online. When I stopped for gas, I wore a mask. The attendant probably didn't recognize me. The key was not to let Kevin know my whereabouts, so I didn't reply to anyone, just played dead. As long as he couldn't find me, he was powerless. The zombie outbreak was set for the day after tomorrow, but I calculated that I should be able to make it home ahead of time. So I wasn't in a huge rush. I even pulled over occasionally to see what new nonsense Kevin was up to. The guy was certainly resourceful. The video of him calling me a scammer was still trending. My screen was filled with insults, and he had even doxed me, posting my rental apartment's address. I didn't care about any of that, until he posted my license plate number. I knew it was over. This car was now useless. That bastard was playing dirty, he was getting desperate. He posted another video, claiming his mom was so stressed out over this that she was in the hospital on the verge of death. He begged the public to help find me, promising he wouldn't cause any trouble, he just wanted an explanation. What damn explanation did he want? I hadn't planned on going into town at all, intending to stick to the highway all the way back home. Now, I had to find a rental car to continue my journey. I never expected that on the way into town, I'd see a for rent sign on a residential house. It was a 2-story house with a yard. Although it was just a concrete shell, the surrounding wall and security bars on the windows were already installed. Most importantly, the area was pretty desolate. There was nobody around. The nearest building was a good 500 yards away. There was no way anyone would be watching this place. A thought flashed through my mind. If I was just looking for a safe spot to pop out of the space without getting eaten by zombies or spotted by people, why did I have to go all the way back to my hometown? Wouldn't hiding out in an unrentable, unfinished house like this be perfect? My phone on silent lit up again. It was another message from that jackass Kevin, begging me to trust him one more time, rambling on about how he loved me and couldn't live without me. What a joke. If I hadn't been reborn, I might have actually believed him and gotten myself killed all over again. I didn't drive into the small town. After jotting down the landlord's phone number, I made a sharp turn, found a deserted spot to park the car, and let my grandma out of the space. I had her contact the landlord to rent the unfinished house. Grandma was surprisingly quick. In just a couple of hours, she had the keys to the house and a 5-year lease agreement. She told the landlord she was renting it for storage. The landlord was a local from the town. He hadn't intended to live in the house anyway, he just built it to rent out as a warehouse or for a small workshop. He even had a pre-made contract ready. My grandma paid 1 year's rent, and he handed over the keys. I put on my mask, got out of the car, and followed Grandma into the 2-story building. The 7-foot-high courtyard wall, and the security bars on the windows of the unfinished house, gave me an incredible sense of security. Instead of continuing our journey, Grandma and I locked the courtyard gate, retreated into the mansion in my space, and had hot pot. We used Grandma's secret family recipe for the broth, perfectly numbing and spicy. I poured myself a beer and mixed in a couple of sodas. The first sip was pure ice-cold bliss. It was the perfect flavor. Zoe Wong, you bitch, where the hell are you? After a satisfying meal, I opened my phone to see an infuriated text from Kevin. I unblocked him on my messenger app and started a video call. Living the good life, of course. Look at this huge mansion. Look at all these supplies. You want some? Zoe, I'm begging you. For the sake of our years together, please save me, okay? Kevin dropped to his knees in front of the camera. I just smiled wider. Give it up. You and your family of animals can forget about ever leeching off me and my grandma again. You all deserve to be eaten clean by zombies. sent to the deepest level of hell, without a single bone left. Zoe Wong, do you really think you're safe just because you have the space? Let me tell you, that space of yours isn't foolproof. How do you think I died? The space has a time limit. When the time is up, it kicks everyone out. Without me, you and your grandma are dead either way. Kevin, his eyes red, was still trying to act. Zoe, you can't just listen to your grandma. Yes, I admit I was wrong last time, but I truly know I was wrong. It was only after you died that I realized you were the one I loved most. Nothing else mattered. Zoe, please believe me, okay? Just this once. How about this? I won't bring my parents. I'll come find you by myself, okay? I swear I'll treat you right this time and never let you get hurt again. Are you saying that after we died, you all got kicked out of the space? I latched onto the key point. Kevin didn't realize and went along with it. Yeah, Zoe, believe me this time. Ha ha ha. I burst out laughing, cutting him off. Kevin, no wonder you died. You went through all that trouble to steal my family's bracelet, thinking you could have the space for yourself. You never imagined my bracelet has a spirit of its own. It recognizes its owner. It must have shut down the space after it knew I was dead. That's why you died, and that's why you were reborn, right? Ha ha ha. I was wondering how you managed to die so quickly. Turns out it was karma. So it was you bitch, not your grandma, who was reborn. Kevin finally caught on, but it was too late. So what if it was me? According to my memories from my past life, the zombie virus would break out in full force the day after tomorrow. Right now, there were already news reports about suspected rabies patients attacking people in busy downtown areas. Did he really think he could search the whole world for me? He wanted to dox me? Even the most resourceful internet trolls would have their own problems to deal with soon enough. I looked at Kevin, still kneeling in front of his phone camera, with pure scorn. I gave him a piece of friendly advice: you should probably go stock up on supplies. You don't have much time left. The countdown to the zombie apocalypse had begun. He was already reborn a day later than me, and he'd wasted so much time running to my hometown and then back to Jincheng, completely focused on finding me. Even if he did stock up, he'd never have as much as I did. He completely wasted the opportunity of being reborn. My grandma and I were staying put in the space with no plans to leave. Thankfully, I had bought 3 high-end gaming PCs and 20 10-terabyte hard drives, all filled with movies, TV shows, and massive single-player games. I also bought 20 controllers, mainly because I was worried they'd break and I wouldn't be able to get replacements. Right now, Grandma and I were playing It Takes Two, connected to the mansion's huge TV. It was a blast, especially for Grandma, who had never played a console game before. She was playing as May, and she shrieked every time she got sucked up by the vacuum cleaner and spat back out. I never thought Kevin would actually find my mail depot. The front gate was originally unlocked, but after they arrived, they locked it from the inside. The only reason I knew was because I had installed security cameras at the depot. I logged into the app on my phone to check on things, and happened to see his dad walking in with a crowbar, followed by the rest of his deranged family. Luckily, I had completely emptied the mail depot, including the shelves, before I left. Although the delivery guy had dropped off more packages after I was gone, most of it was just fertilizer and seeds. I had originally planned to go back to my hometown and do some farming, but now it was all theirs for the taking. I guess seeds and fertilizer are worth something, after all. This is all useless junk. I thought that bitch would have left a ton of supplies here for us. As soon as they got inside the depot, they started tearing open packages. After a few hours, all they had found were a few boxes of cookies that belonged to someone else in the neighborhood. The rest was inedible. For a family of 4, they probably wouldn't last more than a few days if they were relying on these packages. I was confused. Why were they so obsessed with finding me? Wouldn't it be easier to just stock up on their own supplies? Besides, I had the space. Even if they found me, what could they do? The moment I pull my grandma into the space, they'd be completely helpless on the outside. I soon understood why. Kevin's dad slapped his mom across the face, yelling, "You useless woman. I give you tens of thousands of dollars a year, and you can't save a single penny. Now we don't even have money to stock up on supplies. How is this my fault? You only make 30 or 40,000 a year, and rent is 2,000 a month. You have to smoke and drink, and our kids, May and Kevin, are useless. The money they make isn't even enough for themselves, and they're always asking me for more. How am I supposed to save anything? Kevin's mom burst into tears. Kevin's dad snapped. What are you crying for? So pathetic. Kevin chimed in, Dad, we need to find a way to get to that bitch, fast. In our current situation, we won't last long. Some guy online just sent me a picture. That bitch's car is parked near Town. She must be hiding somewhere nearby. My heart skipped a beat. The internet really did know everything these days. Someone had already found my car and sent him a picture. But luckily, I had my grandma rent the house. Kevin only had pictures of me, not my grandma. Even if he came here, he'd never know I was renting a place, let alone hiding in this unfinished house. Let him search. I wanted to see what the hell he could possibly find. But bro, didn't you say the zombie virus is breaking out the day after tomorrow? If we can't find her by then, and we don't have a place to hide, won't we be in a lot of danger? Kevin's sister sounded hesitant. Compared to the unknown town, the mail depot seemed like a safer bet. But Kevin slapped her, just as viciously as his dad had hit his mom. His voice was laced with menace. What the hell do you know? The town will have way fewer people than here, which means it'll be much safer. And I have to find that bitch. This time I won't kill her, I'll lock her up. That way her space will become mine. You guys have no idea how useful that space is, especially that well. I suspect the water in it can make people immortal. And even if we don't find her, we can find a place to live in the town. If worst comes to worst, we'll just take one by force. I was so stunned by Kevin's mention of immortality that I shot up and ran out of the mansion. I'd been on the move these past few days, and only just settled into the space yesterday. Since the mansion had its own water and electricity, I had completely forgotten about the well. Now the well was right in front of me. The water was clear, but it didn't look any different from ordinary water. I put down my phone, cupped my hands, and took a drink. It was cool and sweet, much better than boiled water. Honey, what are you doing? My grandma saw me run out and followed me. Kevin said the water in here can make people immortal. You try some too. I ran back into the house to get a cup, filled a large one, and gave it to my grandma to drink. If it really could grant immortality, then I wanted my grandma to be immortal and stay with me forever. Could it really be that magical? Grandma muttered. Although she was skeptical, she obediently drank the whole cup. I asked eagerly, well, do you feel anything? No. Grandma shook her head hesitantly, then straightened up. I just feel like my body is a lot lighter. Then it's working. Kevin must have drunk the water from here. That's why he suspects it can make people immortal. Grandma, you should drink this water every day. Maybe if you keep drinking it, you'll turn back into an 18-year-old girl. My face was alight with excitement. My grandma was old and not in the best health. Even if this water couldn't grant immortality, if it could make her feel better, that would be a huge blessing. On my phone, Kevin and his family were already getting ready to leave. Their destination was my town. But I wasn't worried. They would never in their wildest dreams imagine that I'd rent an unfinished house to hide in. Plus, with my grandma and me hidden away in the space, they'd never find us. That night, I slept soundly in the space. I was woken up early the next morning by my grandma. Honey, that well water really works. I used to feel a tightness in my chest whenever I lay down, like I couldn't breathe. But last night, I didn't have any chest tightness or shortness of breath at all. I slept like a baby. And my back doesn't hurt, my legs aren't sore, I feel years younger. Grandma's face was glowing with excitement. She even hopped up and down in front of me a few times. Look. Grandma feels like she could leap to the sky. It really was amazing. My earlier guess was right. Either Kevin or someone in his family must have been sick and accidentally discovered that the well water could cure illnesses. That's why he was so desperate to find me this time around. Not just to steal the space, but also to use the well water to extend his life, or even achieve immortality. In his dreams. Now he could forget about ever touching my space again, let alone drinking another drop of this well water. Honey, if you say this well water can cure diseases, do you think it could also cure that zombie virus? If it can, does that mean we could stop the outbreak and save all those people who've been infected? Grandma sat on the edge of the bed, her face grim. Her words stunned me. To be honest, I hadn't even considered it. Especially after being reborn. I was so disillusioned with humanity that all I wanted was to hide away in the space with my grandma. I didn't care if the people outside lived or died, as long as my grandma and I were okay. Honey, how about we contact my old army buddy? Grandma pulled her old feature phone out of her pocket, holding it carefully. Grandma knows you're scared of people trying to take our treasure. But right now, this well water could prevent a disaster that might kill tens of millions of people. We can't be selfish. My grandma had fought in the war and had told me stories of the resistance. Countless heroes had charged headfirst into enemy fire for the future of the country. They didn't care about their possessions or treasures, they didn't even care about their own lives. What they cared about was the country, the people, and the future of generations like us. So what the hell was I hesitating for? My grandma was a hero, but her granddaughter was a coward, afraid to die. I had a potential weapon against the zombie virus, and hadn't even thought about trying to stop it. And when my grandma suggested it, I actually hesitated. Grandma, you're right. This is too important. We can't be selfish. I agreed. If the well water could really cure the zombie virus, I was willing to give it up. All I wanted was for the apocalypse to end sooner, so we could all return to our normal lives. Luckily, the zombie virus hadn't broken out yet, and the internet was still working. The moment Grandma dialed, her old comrade picked up. The first thing he said was, "Sue, what's got you calling me out of the blue?" "I'm fine, old friend. I have something huge to tell you. The day after tomorrow, a zombie virus is going to break out. People won't just bite people, they'll eat them. Millions, maybe tens of millions, will die. All of us will be affected. But my granddaughter has something that might be able to cure the zombie virus. Can you help us contact the relevant authorities? We want to offer this treasure to the country and see if we can stop the virus from breaking out. Where are you?" Grandma's old squad leader didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he told us to send our location and that he would send people to find us. Grandma was thrilled. "Honey, if we can really stop the zombie virus from breaking out, we'll have done a great deed. When I go to the afterlife and see your grandpa, he'll be so jealous. He's always so proud about how many enemies he took down." "Absolutely, Grandma. Let me tell you, if this well water really can stop the zombie virus, we'll be saving way more than just tens of millions of people. You'll have enough bragging rights to last you an eternity with Grandpa." I was getting excited too, mostly infected by my grandma's enthusiasm. My nose started to tingle. My grandpa was also a war hero. He was a crack shot back in the day, taking out enemies with a single bullet. It was just a shame he passed away so early. Grandma had talked about him for most of her life. Every time she mentioned Grandpa fighting the enemy, she'd act unimpressed, but her eyes would be full of admiration. The squad leader was fast. Grandma was still telling me heroic stories about Grandpa when the phone rang again. It was him. He said his people were already outside and told us to open the door. They would take us to a hospital where someone would be waiting for us. Parked outside were 3 police cars. Come, sit in this one." The officer who greeted us had insignia on his shoulders. After we got in the car, we learned he was the chief of the local police department. He had received direct orders to personally pick me and Grandma up and ensure our safe transport to the Provincial Armed Police Hospital, where specialists would be waiting for us. It was a 3-hour drive. The moment the police car stopped, 7 or 8 people in white lab coats rushed out to greet us. One of them eagerly asked my grandma, "Ma'am, do you really have an antidote that can cure the zombie virus?" "My granddaughter does," Grandma said, pointing at me. I added, "Actually, we're not sure. You'll have to test it to find out." We were led into the hospital and down to a lab on the 3rd basement level. Inside, a man was strapped to a bed, struggling violently. From his glazed white eyes and snarling teeth, it was clear he was no longer human. He was a zombie. It turned out the zombie virus outbreak wasn't going to be a single, massive event in 2 days. Scattered cases like this were already popping up, with several hundred across the country. But because there was no effective cure yet, and they didn't even understand the mechanism of the disease, they hadn't announced it publicly to avoid mass panic. The relevant departments were working around the clock, hoping to develop a cure or vaccine in the shortest time possible to stop the virus from spreading. Have him drink this and see if it works. I took a pre-filled bottle of well water out of my space and handed it to the lead expert. He took the clear bottle, hesitated, and asked, "Could you tell me how you obtain this medicine? Why don't you see if it works first?" To be honest, I wasn't sure if it would work. If it didn't, I didn't want to say too much, especially about the space. That had to remain a secret. Fortunately, the expert didn't press the issue and took the well water into the lab. My grandma and I watched the procedure through a glass window. They used a long, tube-like device to inject the well water into the zombie's mouth. At first, there was no reaction. But after about half an hour, the zombie actually calmed down. Its eyelids drooped slightly, as if it were about to fall asleep. An expert next to him shouted excitedly, "Quick, get the monitors on him. Enli, draw 3 vials of his blood and send them for testing." The lab descended into a flurry of activity. My grandma unconsciously tightened her grip on my hand, murmuring, "It has to work, it has to work." We were led to a waiting room and told to wait there for news. They said the well water was definitely having an effect, but they needed the lab reports to confirm if it was a cure. Grandma and I hadn't been sitting for long when a group of people walked in, escorting an elderly woman. Grandma shot to her feet and gave a sharp military salute. "Squad leader. Susan, you and your granddaughter are national heroes." The old squad leader walked over, gripped Grandma's hand tightly, and then looked at me with deep admiration. "A tiger cub from a tiger's den indeed. Your grandmother was a hell of a soldier back in her day, and her descendant is just as formidable." "Excellent, excellent." We sat and chatted. I learned that the government had suspected something was wrong with the blood products from that foreign country 6 months ago. By the time they confirmed it, it was too late. The terrifying virus was already dormant inside countless people, like a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. What was even more terrifying was that the virus was contagious even during its incubation period, transmitted through bodily fluids. This meant if one partner in a couple had used the tainted blood products and contracted the virus, they would inevitably infect the other. There was also mother-to-child transmission. A pregnant woman with the virus would give birth to a child who also carried it. The virus lay dormant in the body for a long time, showing no symptoms before activation, making it extremely difficult to detect. Only when it activated would the terrifying aggressive behavior appear, leading people to bite and even eat others. It's effective. The components in that water can effectively kill the zombie virus. The door was suddenly pushed open. The lead expert, his face flushed with excitement, grabbed my hand. "Is there more? That water you gave me. How much more do you have?" "There's a lot more," I said. "It just wasn't bottled yet." My grandma and I were received by the head of the department. I brought him and Grandma's old squad leader into the space and showed them the well. The well was deep, the water was clear, and there was no telling how much it held or if it was a renewable source. The total amount we could extract was unknown. "This is enough, more than enough. Thank you." The director gripped my hand, his eyes moist. "This will save so many people." Neither he nor the squad leader asked how we got the space. They just told me that they would provide me with everything I needed and guarantee my safety. He said that since I chose to trust the country would not let me down. My nose started to tingle, and I felt a pang of guilt for only thinking about saving myself and my grandma before. Thankfully, it wasn't too late. With only 1 day left until the zombie virus outbreak, the government went into action. In an instant, the streets were cleared. Every television channel began broadcasting the pre-outbreak symptoms: red eyes, sudden convulsions, severe headaches. They announced that anyone who had used the blood products from that specific country, along with their family members, must report to a hospital immediately for vaccination. That's right. The country had already developed a vaccine using the well water I had extracted. I heard that the experts discovered through experiments that injection was more effective. Even when diluted, the active ingredients were still potent enough to eliminate the virus. So to conserve the well water, they diluted it for injection. The vaccine was highly diluted. Since the viral load in a person's body was low before the full-blown outbreak, a single drop of well water was enough to clear the virus. So while I was pumping water out like crazy, all the vaccine manufacturers in the country were working around the clock to produce the vaccine. It was then transported to every corner of the nation, where vaccinated healthcare workers administered it to the entire population. I discovered that the well water was inexhaustible. I had 3 pumps running for a full day and night, and the water level in the well didn't drop at all. So I added 2 more pumps. If there had been more space, I would have added even more. Today was supposed to be the day of the massive outbreak, but the streets of the country were quiet. Only the 911 and ambulance hotlines were busy. Sirens wailed as community workers went door to door. If they found anyone showing symptoms, they swarmed in and jabbed them with the vaccine. The vaccine was so effective that people on the internet were already saying that after getting the shot, their back pain was gone, their legs didn't ache anymore, and they could eat anything. Many women even posted online saying their husbands had regained their youthful vigor after getting the vaccine. This kind of publicity was incredible. Appointments for the vaccine were impossible to get. My grandma and I had already moved into a villa in the capital, with 2 armed guards standing watch at the gate. I no longer had to worry about Kevin and his family showing up to cause trouble. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Grandma yelped as she got stung by the giant wasp, and it takes 2. I yelled, quick, use the match. Grandma, whoa, whoa, whoa. Me, hurry, hurry. Oh man, again. Grandma, it's a good thing this wasp isn't a real enemy, or I'd be taking it down with 1 shot. Me, ha ha. A week had passed since the day the apocalypse was supposed to begin in my previous life. All the infected individuals had been properly treated. A few people who refused to quarantine ended up getting bitten to death by their infected family members, but everyone else was saved. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was overrun with zombies, and the source of the infection was still expanding. Some countries were even proposing a policy of coexisting with the virus. I suddenly realized that Kevin hadn't bothered me in a while. He used to send me over 99 messages a day, but now it had been more than half a month without a single one. A person like him wouldn't give up that easily. Soon enough, I found out why. Kevin and his entire family had been arrested. Apparently, on the night before the scheduled zombie outbreak, they broke into a small supermarket and murdered the family that lived there. When community workers were doing a census, no one answered the door. They assumed no one was home. But the next night, the metal shutter door opened, and 3 bodies were thrown out, 2 adults and a small child, only 2 years old, just left on the doorstep. In the early morning, a street sweeper saw them and screamed, immediately calling the police. The police broke down the door. The family of 4 was still fast asleep. When the police dragged them out of bed, Kevin tried to run. He jumped out of a 2nd-story window, but got caught on a security hook on the wall. He lost his balls and landed on the ground, unable to get up. A death sentence was unavoidable. Kevin said he wanted to see me one last time, claiming he had something very important to tell me. The official from the department came and asked if I wanted to see him. If I did, they could arrange a meeting. I hadn't seen his face since I died in my last life. Of course I wouldn't see him now. Whatever was so important that he had to say it in person could rot in his mouth for all I cared. Seeing a monster like him once would bring a lifetime of bad luck. It was better never to see him again and have good fortune forever. 3 months had passed since the zombie outbreak. My life was pretty comfortable, just playing video games with my grandma every day. The people at the department, however, were incredibly busy, especially the official who was my main contact. Even during the short half hour he'd spend with me discussing the well water, his phone would be ringing off the hook. Many things required his approval before they could be executed. One foreign country was publicly calling for coexistence with the virus, but in reality, they had established some corporation, built towering walls, and surrounded the entire area with an electric fence. Armed soldiers patrolled the top of the walls. Inside lived the rich and powerful. The poor and powerless were trapped outside the walls. The outside was swarming with zombies. Ordinary people had run out of bullets and were struggling to survive with knives. The most terrifying thing wasn't the zombies, it was the people. In that chaotic environment, monsters like Kevin and his family were everywhere. Civilians with knives stood no chance. They either became slaves or were gunned down, eventually becoming food for the zombies. Thankfully, our country had secured its borders. Otherwise, if those zombies or desperate fugitives had poured in, we probably would have been in deep trouble too. Now the official was asking me if the water level in the well was showing any signs of dropping. If not, the country was considering providing some vaccines to friendly nations. After all, in the face of a global disaster, we should help where we can. If the whole world fell, we would eventually be affected as well. I took him into the space to check the water level. Even though 5 pumps had been running for a week, it hadn't dropped at all. He gripped my hand tightly. On behalf of the people of the world, I thank you. I replied, don't mention it, don't mention it. Epilogue 1. A year has passed since the zombie virus outbreak. Thanks to our country's help, the zombie virus has been mostly eradicated, except for one nation that still insists on coexisting with the virus. But the other countries of the world disagreed. They had seen through the true nature of the people behind the walls. One night, the sky was lit up by brilliant fireworks. I heard that the wall suddenly collapsed, and countless zombies poured in. The people behind the wall finally experienced the terror that came with coexisting with the virus. Epilogue 2. Another year passed. I suddenly discovered that the pumps were no longer drawing water. A quick check revealed that the water level in the well was dropping rapidly. I called the official over. By the time he arrived, the well was already dry. He brought in a research team that tinkered with it for over a month. They finally concluded that the well had been overused and was now depleted, like a dried-up river that could no longer produce water. I was quite sad and disappointed. The director patted my shoulder and said meaningfully, "This could be a blessing in disguise." My grandma and I left the capital. We moved back to Jincheng and bought a small villa with the reward money the government gave us. My grandma's health remained excellent. Even in her 70s, she could still act like an 18-year-old, staying up all night playing video games with me. She became a pro at It Takes Two. Now instead of fighting enemies, she just fights the giant wasp, and she hits it with one-shot precision every time. Occasionally, I still wander into the space and visit the dry well, hoping that one day, water will flow from it again. Maybe if I drank it every day, it really could make a person live forever. Unimportant extra. My name is Kevin, Zoe Wong's boyfriend. On the first day of the apocalypse, Zoe called me and said she had a secret space where we could hide until the end of the zombie world. I brought my parents along. When Zoe came to get me, she brought my whole family into the space. It was an amazing place. I discovered a well in the space, and the water inside could cure diseases. The truth is, I was sick. I had a nasty STD. After drinking the well water, I noticed all the growths on my body were gone, and all my other discomforts disappeared overnight. I knew this well was extraordinary. If I drank it every day, I could probably become immortal, maybe even ascend to godhood. For the sake of this well, I decided to steal the space. That idiot Zoe had no defenses against me. She told me everything, including that she used her family's heirloom bracelet to get in and out of the space. I stole the bracelet while she was sleeping. Just as she said, I could freely enter and exit the space with the bracelet. There was no need to keep Zoe and her grandma around. Those two were useless. I had to kick them out. They knelt on the ground and begged me. Her grandma even kowtowed to me. Such a useless old hag, a waste of food. I threw them both out to be eaten by zombies. I never dreamed that the space would close after Zoe died. Not long after the two of them died, my family and I were kicked out of the space. Before I could even figure out what was happening, I was pounced on and bitten by a nearby zombie, the same one that had attacked Zoe first. I don't know if it was because of that, or because of the bracelet. But somehow I was reborn. The first thing I did was call Zoe. This time, I wouldn't kill her. I would imprison her, keep her like a pet pig or a dog, and I would feed her the well water every single day. As long as she lived forever, the space would always be mine. I never thought she would be reborn too. And she went to the government, even distributed the well water to everyone, preventing the zombie virus from ever breaking out. Why did it happen like this? This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Why didn't the zombie virus break out? The police arrested all 4 of us because on the night before the scheduled outbreak, we killed a family of 3 in a small supermarket and just threw their bodies out onto the street. My dad called me an idiot. He said the whole rebirth thing was fake, that there was never going to be a world-ending apocalypse. But that's not right. On this day in my last life, the zombie virus did break out. Everyone was fending for themselves. Even murder went unnoticed. So what I did wasn't wrong. The one who was wrong was Zoe. She stopped the zombie virus from happening. She stopped the apocalypse from coming. Yes, it was her fault. She was the reason we were sentenced to death. But I still had a chance. I had to see Zoe. She had the space, she could save me. As long as she was willing to see me, I could use our past love to trick her into letting me hide in her space. I sent a message to her, telling her I knew more secrets about the space and the well. I thought she would definitely show up. But she didn't. From beginning to end, I never saw her again, not even when I died. How could that woman be so ruthless? If I had known, I never would have killed her. The end.